The reading module lasts for 60 minutes in total. There are 40 questions distributed over 3 sections. Through 3 academic passages, you have to answer to all of these 40 questions. And you will have to transfer your answers to the answer sheet using a pencil. So what are the question types? There is true, false, not given. There are MCQ questions, matching headings, matching information, sentence summary table, notes completion, etc. The procedure. You have to attempt questions from the booklet and then transfer your answers to the answer sheet using a pencil. For this, you will not have any extra time. Here's an example of an academic reading passage. In this passage, there are multiple paragraphs, which is normal for an IELTS test reading module. Here are some sample reading questions. This is an example for the true, false, not given type of question. This is an example for the summary completion. This is an example for matching information type of questions. In case of all of these questions, you have to read these instructions very, very carefully because your answer has to be according to these instructions. Okay? All right. We'll move on to the next part. So you can see the procedure here. First of all, you have the questions here and you will have to answer from this booklet and transfer your answers to the answer sheet. This is a question like in case of this is the true, false, not given type of questions. And if an answer is true, you just have to write true like instructed here. Okay. So first of all, we will check out this question. If this question or this page is true, then we have to write true in the number 1 section. Okay? You have to write true in this gap. I hope you understand. So here are 5 steps to solving reading questions. First of all, you have to skim through an entire passage in 2 minutes. Skim through each passage in 2 minutes before you start answering to each section. Okay? And then you have to read the question carefully and understand the context. Just going through the words won't be enough for you in case of reading. You have to understand the meaning, the context, and the idea. Then use your memory to find relevant content in the specific part of the passage. After that, you have to ask the question from the booklet to yourself again in Bangla if possible, because that way it will be engraved in your memory and you can look for the answer much faster. In step 5, you follow the mentioned steps and then practice time management at home. Time management is very crucial for reading, remember that. But first, you have to start answering to all of the questions. If you practice answering to all of the questions, then there will be lesser possibility for you to make incorrect answers. Here are some crucial tips for reading. First, highlight keywords during 2-minute skimming. Keywords are very important in case of skimming. Now, you can't assume or predict answers, as I said before, because it's an open book exam and you have to find the answers from the booklet, okay? Now, do not focus on the big words. Focus on the context, the idea, and the meaning, okay? After that, you have to learn collocations. Collocations are very important because oftentimes in reading booklet, the questions will be paraphrased and it will be hard for you to find the specific part in the academic passages because oftentimes they'll be there in terms of synonyms and paraphrases. Okay? So collocations are very important, like make up. If there's up after make, it has a specific meaning. And you have to learn this type of phrases. Then you have to read a lot of newspapers and journals to enrich your vocabulary to do better at reading. Finally, start with solving all the questions in an unlimited time. First, make sure you can answer correctly. Do not hurry, okay? Be very focused, be patient, and learn to solve the answers properly first. Okay, we'll move on to the next part. So in this part, I have some quizzes for you. The first quiz is, how many questions are there in the reading module of the IELTS test? And the second question is, how many passages are there in the reading module of the IELTS test? This is an example of the MCQ pattern of questions in the reading test, and if you followed my lecture carefully, then you'll be able to ace the MCQ parts in the IELTS exam. So can you guess the answers? Can you tell me what the answers are? The answer to the first question is 40, and the answer to the second question is 3. If you've got them correctly, congratulations. Here's a third question for you. Is the following statement true, false, or not given? If you can answer properly, then I will know that you followed my lecture, and you can probably ace the true, false, not given part of IELTS test in the reading section. Okay. To ace the reading module, we should first skim through a passage in only 1 minute. Is it true, or is it false, or is it not given? The answer is false, because I have clearly mentioned that you can skim through each passage in 2 minutes, not 1, right? So this statement is false. Let's move on to the next part. Is the following statement true, false, or not given? We must read and understand the whole of all 3 passages completely. Can you answer? The keywords are understand, whole, 3 passages. So I'm pretty sure that I have never mentioned anything about reading the whole of all 3 passages. I've only instructed you to skim through the passages in the first 2 minutes. So this statement is not given. So what do you actually have to do in the real IELTS test? Well, there are a total of 3 passages, and you won't have enough time to go through all of them and understand all of them completely. So this is not what we do. We just skim through and we then search for the answer to the questions. Okay? Remember that. Is the following statement true, false, or not given? In the reading section, highlighting keywords is very important. Can you answer? This one is very easy. I think you can answer. So the answer is true, because highlighting is actually very important. I told you about it when I gave you some crucial tips, remember? Okay, let's move on to the next part. Now, if you've been able to answer to all of the questions, congratulations. Now we will dive into some real IELTS reading problems. First of all, we must remember that reading is an open book exam. So when solving true, false, not given questions, we must not guess, assume, or predict any answers, because the answer is definitely hidden in the reading passage. If it's not there, then it's not given. Okay, please try to remember that. Now, how can we establish logic for this type of questions? Here's an example. Kieran does almost all the chores, while Molly helps him do his homework. It is hard for her to manage enough time for chores. So can you tell me what will be the answer to these statements? First of all, the first statement says, Molly does little of the chores, which is definitely true, because she cannot manage enough time. It's clearly given here. Kieran tends to avoid household works. Now, is this statement true or false? This is definitely false, because he does almost all the chores as given in the statement. Finally, Kieran does not do his homework at all. This statement is not given, because from this passage we cannot assume what he does. Now we will try to solve a real true-false not given question so that we can finally grasp it completely. Okay, let's start. So you see that this is an example of an academic passage in case of reading. The topic is the concept of childhood in Western countries. As soon as we start this section, we must skim through the passage and highlight so that we know which topic is mentioned in which paragraph. Okay, so let's start. Whether childhood is itself a recent innovation has been one of the most insanely debated issues in history of childhood. Okay. So, as soon as we've started reading the passage, we must remember, for skimming, first of all, you have to read the first line carefully, and then read the final line carefully of each paragraph. Repeat this in case of all paragraphs. And then you skim through, which means chok bulai jawa, the middle part of a paragraph. Okay? Try to underline keywords as you go. Okay, now we can start answering to these questions. So, let's read the instruction first. Do the following statements agree with the information given in the reading passage 1? In boxes 1 to 7 on your answer sheet, write true if the statement is true, false if the statement is false, which means if it contradicts the given information, and then not given if the information is not given in the passage. You know nothing about it. Okay? Now let's look at the first question. Aris pointed out that children did different types of work to adults during the Middle Ages. It means they did not do similar work. They did different type of works than adults. Who? Kids. So, did they do different type of works? That's the question. If you've remembered, we can find here in this paragraph that during the Middle Ages, there was no distinction between children and adults, for they shared similar leisure activities and work. They shared similar work. So there was actually no distinction. For this reason, this statement is false. because it says that they did different types of work, whereas in Middle Ages, they did not do different types of works. Okay. Now, let's look at question number 2. Working children during the Middle Ages were generally unloved. Is it true? Is this false? Or is it not given? Let's search for it. So, Middle Ages were mentioned in this paragraph as well. And here it says, this does not mean children were neglected, forsaken, or despised. So, the claim that during the Middle Ages they were generally unloved isn't true, because he says that this does not mean children were neglected, forsaken, or despised. Okay? So this is false as well. Let's look at question number 3. Some scientists thought that overwork might damage the health of young children. Do you remember overworking, anything about overworking damaging the health of children? I think we found it in paragraph 2. Let's see. Let's read this part. The issue of whether long hours of laboring would interfere with children's growing bodies. You can see that this is completely paraphrased, and the question uses synonyms like damaging the health of young children is written in the passage as interfere with children's growing bodies. These two have the same meaning, right? And overwork is also mentioned as something else. Here it says long hours of laboring. This is stated as overwork. And they mention social reformers here. And this part, they said scientists. After that, we can read that some of them started to realize the potential of systematic studies to monitor how far these early deprivations might be influencing children's development. So we understand that overwork is actually making the bodies of the young children unhealthy and stopping their growth. For this reason, this statement is true. Do you get it? I hope you did. We'll move on to the 4th question. In the 20th century, almost all children needed to go to school with a full-time schedule. Now, actually, there's nothing mentioned about 20th century in this passage. So we cannot know if children needed to go to school with a full-time schedule. Okay? For this reason, this statement is not given. Finally, nowadays, children's needs are much differentiated and categorized based on how old they are. So, in the final paragraph, as far as I remember, it was mentioned that an increasing number of children are being treated as a group with unique needs in the light of their age. So, this information can be found in this paragraph. Teachers need to know some information about what to expect of children in their classrooms, what kind of instructions are appropriate for different age groups, and what is the best way to assess children's progress. And this passage talks about the current times, right? Which is mentioned here, nowadays. And they clearly said that the children are being treated as a group with unique needs, so their needs are much differentiated, and they are being organized into groups in the light of their age. So they're being grouped or categorized based on how old they are. For this reason, this statement is true. That's all for today's class. I hope you've been able to answer to all of the questions and you've been able to understand the logic for the true, false, not given type of questions. Thank you very much. I'll see you in next class.